Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Shutt joining you for this edition of Nate at 8. Dodging a lot of that precipitation going through the latter part of today. A lot of it staying really just west of our area, as well as further towards the east. And while we're dodging a lot of this precipitation through this evening, that'll carry over here early tonight. We will be watching as we can see some showers redevelop, and we may be not so much of the miss, maybe more of the hit tomorrow, but these showers are going to stay more scattered in nature again tomorrow. So just depending on where we're going to see them set up again as we go into the daytime tomorrow, could very well set up again similar to today, or we could be getting more of them. So it's going to be more hit or miss. We'll be watching for more showers redeveloping for the latter part of tomorrow. And that's just one of several more rounds of some precipitation to arrive into the weekend. So we're going to start to map out these rounds of precipitation coming our way. And in fact, for this edition of Nate at 8 coming up again, we have that shower possible here early on tonight. Then, like I mentioned, more scattered showers redeveloping going into the latter part of Wednesday. And yes, we're going to touch on some more rounds of showers and thunderstorms arriving into the weekend. So we're going to be breaking down some rounds of precipitation coming our way into the weekend, and also going to be briefly touching on what we have here for this evening, early tonight, and again, we'll be watching for tomorrow as well. Our current temperatures coming off of highs that made it mid to lower 70s across the area. Our temperatures now are falling into the 60s. We are likely on our way back in the 50s. The limiting factor for tonight and for tomorrow night could very well be our dew point. So we have that potential here over the next couple of nights to deal with some areas of fog, especially with that good potential for at least some clearing in our skies later tonight as well as tomorrow night. So that is one thing to watch here over the next couple of nights. While likely not much precipitation into the morning hours, we will be watching then for some areas of fog that are possible here for the morning commute. Now, where we're likely seeing the most dense fog is where we would spot more of that rain. So for today, again, it's further west and east of our area is likely the more dense fog. And for us, still fog potential, but the most dense will likely stay in the locations that did pick up these rounds of rain going throughout this evening, which again, literally just west of us in Coshocton, Muskingum, Morgan Perry County, Lincoln County, Knox County, just west of that I-77 corridor. And a lot of that rain was further east, especially looking towards Johnstown, getting closer to central PA. That's where we saw a lot of this precipitation fall going throughout the latter part of today. Drew joining us this evening on Facebook. Good evening to you. How are you doing? I'm doing okay. How are you? We lucked out with the weather today. Yeah, right. It was shocked to stay east and west. And Drew just talking about what we just were talking about, Drew, getting ahead of us there with that comment before we even got to it. Yeah, absolutely, Drew. You nailed it, to just staying west and east of us for today. Austin, good evening to you. How was your Mother's Day? It was well. How was yours? Hopefully you had a good weekend there, Austin, and everyone tuning in. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Are we going to have any heavy rain or strong thunderstorms this week? So we'll dive into that here in just a minute, Austin, when we start to talk about later on this week if we could have any strong thunderstorms. And if we do, then when to watch for them. So we'll dive into that in just a minute. And good evening to you, Melissa. Thanks for tuning in. And Drew asking you how much rain inches-wise should we expect for the rest of the week? And also, we'll dive into that in just another minute, Drew. So, yeah, I'll answer those questions in just a minute once we get to it. So, all right, there's our clouds and radar. Again, a lot of it, Drew nailing it here, just staying west and east of our area. Even when we broaden our view, there's been some rain trying to move back into locations south of I-70, but it just not holding together well at all. Still spawning that light shower. It's been making its way out of locations we've dealt with. Some of this light rain trying to make its way into Noble, Monroe, Tyler, Wetzel County, now moving through Marshall County. Just not doing well. We're really getting into the dry slot of the system. So we're seeing that precipitation stay just west and east of us. And again, not too much here early on tonight. And what does remain will likely taper off here now that we're getting closer to the sunset and extending past that mark, that we're going to be not dealing with much more. That light shower in Marshall County is going to be tapering off here likely within the next hour or two. Likely a lot of this precipitation is then done in our area, and we're going to be drying up. And then as we go into the remainder of the night. So again, not too much for us here, but certainly a lot just towards our east, even southeast, and then just to the west. You can see where radar estimated rainfall really highlighting those locations that picked up a lot more rain over the last 24 hours with respect to what we had, especially into the latter part of today. And we'll be jumping to Futurecast. I think the model depicting this pretty good here. I think, showing that the lingering shower coming to an end here early tonight, right? Notice a lot of this precipitation will wane with the loss of the daytime heating, and we're going to be likely drying up then going throughout the overnight. And notice the clearing that we can start to see as well into tomorrow morning. Those temperatures, again, the limiting factors, the dew point, more upper 50s. So that's where we can see the temperatures fall to, but get limited to, and that's where we'll start to see that fog develop later on tonight once those temperatures start to reach near and just into the 50s. So once we get closer to 60, upper 50s later tonight, we'll watch for some fog developing for tomorrow morning's commute. Then a mainly dry start to tomorrow. Not much precipitation at all for the first half of Wednesday. Notice what happens in going into the afternoon. Futurecast, again, I think doing a good job just illustrating how hit or miss this precipitation can be. Again, similar, and not to say that tomorrow's going to play out just like today. Again, we could very well be like location just west of us where we're dealing with this rain just on and off going through a good portion of the day. So the potential's still there for more of these scattered showers, and yes, even possibly some thunderstorms in the mix as well. Redeveloping tomorrow afternoon, continuing then as we go into tomorrow night. But much like tonight, anything that does develop tomorrow will likely taper off early on. So we'll dry back up likely going into Thursday morning. And yes, the potential's there again with those temperatures falling around 60, upper 50s to see more areas of fog developing Thursday morning. If we pick up more rain tomorrow going into tomorrow night before that clearing, then we could spot some more dense fog if we do pick up more rain than what we had for today, looking ahead tomorrow going into Thursday morning. Something to note for Thursday morning's commute. Depending if we do pick up some rounds of rain, especially heavy rain, then those locations can then see the dense fog into the following morning going into Thursday morning, depending on how much rain we can pick up going through the latter part of tomorrow. And then a lot of Thursday actually ends up dry. So temperatures tomorrow, not real much warmer with respect to today, likely more mid upper 70s. It's a little warmer than today. We were mid lower 70s. It'll be more mid upper 70s tomorrow, so a little warmer, but the more noticeable warm up likely occurs Thursday into Friday. This is when high temperatures are back into the 80s. So we'd be more mid lower 80s Thursday, mid 80s Friday. So those are our warm days. It's a noticeable warm up with respect to today by Thursday and into Friday. And a lot of Thursday ends up dry. It's not a bad day. A lot of Thursday, the daytime's dry. I would just watch towards the evening, likely more so after that to drive home, especially getting closer to sunset. While I know Futurecast isn't showing much, we could still spot a shower thunderstorm developing at this time at the end of the day. It's not a great odds, but that potential is there for at least something isolated in our area at this point going into Thursday evening. Now, the higher rain threat will then hold off later on at night, especially once we get past that midnight mark, Thursday night into Friday morning. And this is when we are likely dealing with more showers and thunderstorms. And I really think Futurecast is even underdoing how much we'll see at this point. I think we could see a lot more than what Futurecast is showing here. And again, we'll watch for these showers and thunderstorms later Thursday night, continuing then going into Friday morning. Now, what I do think Futurecast is doing a good job then is illustrating the fact that a lot of this is then leaving by Friday afternoon. So a lot of what we do see is more Thursday night into Friday morning. And then by the time we get to Friday afternoon, a lot of these showers and thunderstorms are tapering off. And we're going to spend the latter part of Friday likely dry with those high temperatures, even in the mid 80s. And here's the thing, we actually get a similar repeat of what we're seeing Thursday night to Friday, again, Friday night into Saturday. So a lot of the following precipitation will fall Friday night into Saturday morning, and a lot of it then exits Saturday afternoon. So it's pretty similar in that regard. But obviously picking up on the fact, right, like we just discussed, there's still several more rounds of rain to come. So it's a lot to keep track here going through the weekend that, we still got several more rounds of rain to come. And we'll break it down as well here just a minute to summarize these rounds of rain going through the weekend to kind of get a better grasp and it's kind of hard to follow with Futurecast to try to remember all these, but we'll break down the timing of these rounds of precipitation coming our way going into the weekend. But first I want to touch on, if we're dealing with anything impactful, there's likely not too much coming our way, thankfully, in terms of impacts with either flooding or severe weather. Thankfully, likely not too much coming our way. And I think really the saving grace to that is the fact that the timing is late for a lot of this. Tomorrow, likely not dealing with severe weather. Again, thunderstorm possible, but likely not dealing with severe weather. The flooding risks does not look high tomorrow, but we still could get showers in the afternoon and evening. Now, the following rounds, with it being more overnight, is the part that is the saving grace, because we do have the potential for severe weather, but just the fact that it's late at night, Thursday night into Friday morning, just the fact that it's late timing really helps reduce that risk for severe weather. Does it eliminate it? No, but it does reduce it. The higher risk is going to be further towards the west, where these storms are occurring with more of that fuel, with daytime heating, some more fuel for these storms to tap into. And the late arrival, again, this is likely even after midnight on a Thursday night into Friday morning. The late arrival will reduce our risk, but we do have the potential. This would be the time period to watch, is late Thursday night into Friday morning, or early Friday morning before the sun rises. This would be the time period to watch for that potential for a strong to severe thunderstorm. Again, with the late timing of this, the overall severe risk is more conditional, right? There's no guarantee to see a severe thunderstorm during this time period, but the potential is there. It is possible. Again, what we would see is likely more isolated in terms of it, more short-lived, limited intensity, but there is that potential. That's one time period we are going to watch as we extend later Thursday night and into Friday. Once we get later into the week, then we'll dive into what we could see Friday night into Saturday. It's a little too early yet to dive into anything. There's still some uncertainty in regards to the potential for impacts during that time period. But as it stands now here over the next few days, this is what I'd watch for in terms of the impacts, would be the potential for a severe thunderstorm late Thursday night into Friday. So like I mentioned, we were going to break it down now. So here's hopefully a graphic can help further break down these rounds of rain, because I know there's a lot to track here over the next several days. There's a lot, right? And it's hard to remember all of it just breaking it down with Futurecast. So here's the rain outlook. So again, tomorrow, starting off likely dry in the morning. Now, tomorrow, in terms of the daytime hours, tomorrow could end up being the wettest, depending on if it's more hit or miss, right? It's more scattered, that's for sure. But I think in terms of the daytime hours, that potential to be more wet is there Wednesday in the afternoon and evening, as we'll deal with scattered showers and thunderstorm redeveloping. Again, not anticipating any real high risk of impacts for that rain later into the day tomorrow. It looks like an overall low risk for severe weather and flooding coming our way. If I would, maybe a little higher risk for isolated flooding than any severe weather, but I think overall the potential there, the overall risk are low for each in the latter part of Wednesday. And now again, by Thursday, most of that day is dry. It's not until the very end of the day Thursday that we could spot a shower thunderstorm moving in, and that threat will then increase Thursday night, right? We'll deal with more widespread showers and thunderstorms, but it's overnight Thursday. And again, the same scenario plays out Friday into Saturday. We're dealing with more numerous showers and some thunderstorms, but it's overnight. So these daytime hours here, looking ahead into the weekend, a lot of these daytime hours, they're overly not too wet. A lot of what we see Friday and Saturday is into the morning hours, and we're drying up in the afternoon. So, in terms of the daytime hours, there's no real washout looking ahead here going through the weekend, but those are our times to watch. So again, it's tomorrow afternoon to evening. That'll end then tomorrow night, right? So the second half of Wednesday, the majority of Thursday's dry. So it's more Thursday night into Friday morning, and then Friday night into Saturday morning. So again, Wednesday afternoon and evening, then we'll deal with Thursday night into Friday and Friday night into Saturday. That's really our time periods to watch for these rounds of some rain coming our way. And then by Sunday, we're likely dry. So by the latter part of Saturday, likely drying up. Sunday dry. So ultimately, really a good portion of the weekend does end up dry as well. Now, in terms of precipitation amounts during this stretch, on a widespread scale, not anticipating enough to raise the alarm for flooding, the locally higher amounts, which is what the model is trying to depict here in New Martinsville. It's trying to depict where, we could see some locally higher amounts. I think ultimately we're dealing with up to about a half inch, maybe to an inch of rain. Between a half inch and inch is what a lot of us could end up with through this stretch through Saturday. And that's not enough through this entire time period to raise concerns for any widespread flooding. On a local scale, maybe we do deal with some isolated flooding just where we're picking up rounds of heavier rain over some locations, which it's going to be hard to pinpoint exactly where that can occur. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where we can see thunderstorms develop or pockets of heavier rain. Models have limitations in that regard, but certainly hinting at it, right? So, we could deal with some isolated flooding during the stretch into the weekend, but I don't anticipate anything widespread or major. And again, the severe weather risk, hopefully, they'll thankfully do the timing, being that the next couple of rounds that would bring the potential for severe weather, they're occurring overnight. So that should ultimately keep that severe risk lower as well. And we'll likely deal with the highest severe threat. And the worst of these systems is going to be further towards the west and out of our area. So it's certainly some good news in that regards, that the impacts that we can face here going into the weekend, I think ultimately we're not facing the worst of this. And ultimately, I think, potential is there for more isolated flooding. And I think really the severe risk can remain more on that regard as well, that it would stay more isolated if we're dealing with any strong to severe thunderstorms. So certainly some good news in that. And of course, as we do get closer to Friday night into Saturday, it's just a little early yet now, being Tuesday, to really dive into severe potential that late out going into Saturday morning and Friday night. But we'll certainly, even start to take a deeper dive into that here over the next couple of days. And again, when we have Thursday night into Friday, that late timing, maybe something isolated, but even then that severe risk does not look that high. And I'm not anticipating severe thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and evening. And the overall flooding risk looks low as well. Again, maybe something isolated when it comes to flooding concerns in general. From tomorrow going through the weekend. But even then, not anticipating any widespread flooding coming our way during this stretch. Now, our temperatures, we will bump up back in the 80s. So our warm days, again, Thursday and Friday, we're in the 80s. It's warm those couple of days later this week. A little bit of a cool down there this weekend. Not a real cool, but we'll be back in the 70s Saturday into Sunday, and then more mid-lower 70s going into the first half of next week. And then we can see a further cool down then going into that following weekend. And it does look like, while, this week and a good portion of next week, we're still dealing with more seasonable to above normal temperatures, that we can start to see a cool down then that will follow going into the end of the month. So we can get into a cooler period in the end of the month. So if you've been wondering how Memorial Day could be shaping up to be, could favor cooler temperatures, and with a cooler pattern in place with that trough, that can also indicate then the potential possibly for some rain. I mean, it's too early to call if it's going to rain or not Memorial Day, but when you're dealing with that cooler pattern, there's a little better odds to deal with some precipitation as well. So we'll certainly keep an eye on it though going into the Memorial Day forecast. But as it stands now, one thing that is looking more likely is that we could deal with some cooler temperatures rather than any warm temperatures for Memorial Day. And of course, we'll continue to keep an eye on it as we get closer to that date to let you know if we could have to dodge some showers with that cooler temperatures as well. Drew's saying, I heard there was some severe flooding in my old home state of Maryland, in the western part of the state. And yeah, Drew, when we brought up that radar estimated rainfall, a lot more rain that way here recently over the past 24 hours. Dealing with a lot more rain further towards our east, and even in pockets just west of us. I know dealing with some flooding just west of us in east central Ohio, even in portions this evening, dealing with some flooding just west of us. So certainly, thankfully, dodging that rain and the flooding potential going throughout this evening. And again, overall, thankfully, I think for us, the flooding risk would stay more isolated and minor rather than anything widespread and major going through the weekend. Dixie says, thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Dixie, appreciate you joining us on Facebook this evening. Same to you, Shelly. Thanks for the update. You're very welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I can see the severe weather for Thursday night in the flatlands of the state western portion. Yeah, a little bit of odds, Drew, certainly to the west of us to deal with that severe weather potential, western Ohio back into Indiana. Okay, with a little bit of rain, didn't like the drought we had last summer. That is true. We're going to take some of this rain. I know some dry weather would be nice. These rounds of rain will certainly take that over the drought, though. That's for sure. I agree with you there, Lola. The rain estimate through Saturday seems low. About ½ inch to an inch is probably what we'll deal with. The future cast is probably underdoing that some. I would, again, about ½ inch to an inch, I think, is a good range from what we can see going through Saturday, with some, pockets of some heavier amounts that can exceed an inch, maybe 2 inches, where we can see some rounds of some heavier rain and some thunderstorms that can exceed that amount, where we can get some pockets of some higher rainfall amounts. What will cause the cooler weather early to middle of next week? So we'll see a change in a pattern. We're going to start to see, instead of dealing with ridging, we're going to start to deal with a trough. So it's just a change in the upper level pattern, and we'll start to see some cooler temperatures then follow later going into the end of the month, really, as the upper air pattern. Once we start to see that jet stream start to dip more south of our area, some cooler air will then follow in, and we can start to deal with some cooler temperatures here later this month. Near term, again, it's dealing with some unseasonably warm temperatures through the weekend, and a little bit of a cool down then can follow as we get into, especially later next week. It's still more seasonable overall in early next week, but especially late next week and into that following weekend, we can start to get into that cooler pattern coming our way. And we can even dive into, before we wrap up here, our long range forecast during this stretch. Let me pull it up here, right here. So our long range forecast during the stretch, 6-10 days, 8-14 days. So, this is extending, going, even past what we have in our 10-day forecast. So this is looking into that following weekend. You can see how good the odds are for some below normal temperatures. And what's happening here, let's see if I can actually pull this up so I can draw on it. So let's try to reload this. Let's see if I can draw on this now. Maybe not. I think we can. So what's happening here, you can see this in the 8 to 14 day forecast. We're looking at the middle one here at the top part. That's our temperature trend and the forecast there, long range. You can see the blue, forecasting below normal temperatures, and then the odds for above normal temperatures there in the orange and yellow. So what's happening here is this trough is digging into the eastern part of the U.S. So what happens in this type of pattern when you're dealing with this? So this is where we would have what would be called the ridging, and then the trough would dig into the eastern part of the U.S. So this is where you would start to see, under this ridge, you have heat building. So just like what we're dealing with here for this week, that heat building under the ridge, we're seeing these temperatures then climb up, heat building, and then the cooler air will follow in with the trough. So this is where we're getting that cooler air sinking south into the area. This is our pattern. Then looking ahead, going into the following weekend, and under the ridge, the heat will build. So this cooler air spilling in from the north, and then you're seeing some of these temperatures warm underneath that ridge to the west, and then the trough digging into the east. This is all has to do with the upper air pattern. And that's the pattern that we're going to see develop then going into the following weekend here. Looking ahead later this month, this is what we can see settle in closer to even going in closer towards Memorial Day as well. This is what the type of pattern that we can see start to develop looking ahead going into that point in our long range forecast. That's the change in the upper air pattern that we are going to see. We may be even able to illustrate that if I can pull this up for you. Let's see if we can pull this up as well. So this is the graphics for our upper air pattern. So right now what we're dealing with is an upper level low, which you can spot here on the map. You can see this area that is cut off. So you notice that purple dot, right, over portions there of Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, Indiana. So that's an upper level low. Upper level low bring low level woes, right? We're dealing with some showers from this. We're dealing with the cloud cover from this. That's what's bringing our weather here today, and what's bringing the weather again for tomorrow, that upper level low. You see it's still in place as we go through through today, as well as for tomorrow. Notice it makes its exit though then as we extend later into the week. So by the time we get into Thursday, that upper level low is dissolving and getting caught really into that upper level flow. So you'll notice that upper level low leaves, and we finally start to spot a little more sunshine into Thursday, and we're starting to spot some drier weather Thursday as well. And during this time period, now what we're going to be watching is, as we go through the weekend, notice that we're starting to deal with a bit of a pattern change. So right now you can already spot in the west, that's the trough digging into the western part of the U.S. And there's still a little bit of ridging then over our place here as we look into the big blob of purple into the western part of the U.S. That's that trough digging in. So some cooler temperatures for those locations by the latter part of this weekend. But for us, we're still dealing with temperatures more mid-upper 70s, still some unseasonably warm temperatures. But notice what happens then as we progress, as we look a little bit further, that trough's getting closer and closer to us. And eventually then it's going to dig into our area. And that's what's going to usher in that change later next week going into the following weekend, and the change in that upper air pattern pattern that'll bring some of those cooler temperatures coming our way during this stretch. Again, that cooler pattern then can even stay in place as we look ahead, getting closer towards Memorial Day as well. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. I hope everyone had a wonderful day. Hope you have a great evening. You can catch me coming up News 9 at 10 on Fox 9 News 9 tonight at 11. You can also catch me coming up, of course, for that next edition of Nate at 8 tomorrow evening. I'll be back in tomorrow to give you guys the latest on where we stand with, well, our rain developing tomorrow evening and the latest on where we stand for the next couple of rounds. And then more Thursday night as well as Friday night. I'll bring the latest on where we stand with those as well, as we do look ahead going into the weekend with these rounds of rain in place. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Have a great night. And again, I'll see you on the next edition of Nate at 8.